If you've never heard the name Stefan Breitweiser, chances are you're not a museum owner, or you don't own any extremely valuable pieces of art in a private collection. If that was the case, you might live in fear of the 52-year-old Frenchman who, working together with his girlfriend and partner in crime, Anne Catherine Kleinklaus, has stolen an estimated $2 billion worth of art from over 200 museums around the world. You need not fear for your physical safety. Breitweiser has a code, looking down on other art thieves who assault museum guards after hours to pull off their heists. Breitweiser's heists are only undertaken during the museum's operating hours, and focus more on elaborate, almost magic trick-like shenanigans which guarantee no one gets hurt, but he gets his prize. Likewise, Breitweiser has no respect for those who might ultimately vandalize or destroy the artwork they steal, dubbing them barbarians. Breitweiser has only ever taken pieces that personally spoke to him in some way. He's not interested in their financial value and has never tried to sell a stolen piece. Instead, he would display them in a secret attic room in his France home, where he could enjoy the art on his own time, in his own way. For this reason, Breitweiser considers his crimes to be essentially victimless, an act of passion rather than villainy. Authorities certainly don't agree, as Breitweiser has spent several years in prison for his actions. Art theft is more common than most probably realize, with some estimates saying as many as 50,000 pieces of art are stolen from museums and private collections every year. Most of these pieces end up on the black market, since financial gain is the biggest motivating factor for most art thieves. So while Breitweiser's lack of financial motivation is the exception, he's still not the only case of art thievery motivated by a true love of the medium. Throughout the 70s and early 80s, a Philadelphia physician named Frank Waxman stole dozens of items from art dealers, including pieces by Warhol and Picasso, displaying them in his home and telling his wife they were purchased using an inheritance he had obtained from his late grandfather. His overall carelessness led to his arrest in 1982. In 1985, Jerry and Rita Alter, married, middle-aged public school teachers, visited the University of Arizona Museum of Art on the day after Thanksgiving. While Rita distracted the only guard on duty, Jerry pulled a piece by Willem de Kooning off the wall, stuck it in his coat, and the pair returned home, hanging the piece in their bedroom where it could only be seen when the door was closed. Jerry passed away in 2011, and it was not until Rita passed away 6 years later the painting was finally found, during which time its value had soared past $100 million. The Alters had never been interested in that money, though. They just loved looking at it in their bedroom. It's likely Waxman, the Alters, and a few other art thieves over the years, motivated primarily by their personal appreciation for the pieces they took, share the same view of their actions as Breitweiser, considering it a victimless crime. This is an opinion not shared by Michael Finkel, author of the recently published book The Art Thief, a true story of love, crime, and a dangerous obsession, all about Breitweiser. Finkel was obviously fascinated by Breitweiser enough to write the book all about him, even interviewing him extensively. But still, Finkel has a harsher view of Breitweiser's crimes than the man himself. As Finkel points out, the thefts denied everyone else the opportunity to see these pieces in a museum. As Finkel puts it, he was a cancer on civil society. The victims were all of us. Finkel might have a point, but this hasn't stopped various films and works of literature from romanticizing the sort of art thieves exemplified by Breitweiser, Waxman, and the Alters. In fact, when a popular movie star sought to supplement his one already wildly successful franchise with another, and decided to do so by remaking a popular 60s heist movie, he and the filmmaking team theorized the best way to get the audience on his side would be to drop the original film's idea of the titular character as bank robber, and instead turn him into a gentleman art thief. One can't help but wonder if Stefan Breitweiser and Catherine Ann Kleinklaus ever had a movie night, watched the resultant film, and compared notes. The year is 1999, and MGM is looking to team one of the world's biggest stars of the time with one of Hollywood's most acclaimed action directors to launch a new romantic heist thriller franchise with The Thomas Crown Affair.
10, Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris. And I was really, reminded of a great song. I'd like to sing a little bit for you, Trev.
Oh boy.
Monet, 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 Monet.
And that'll do it for this episode. Rate, review, whatever you do.
Yeah,
the shortest. Hit that subscribe.
The shortest editing job I've ever done.
Well, despite what Chris just did to all of us, hopefully we are all feeling good and in the festive holiday spirit, because this is the second part of our third annual Failure to Franchise presents Trev and Chris Miss. I want to make that pause longer each time I say it.
I love it.
Yeah. But no, this is our holiday spectacular where we gift each other movies that, we would pull from our large list. Movies that typically we couldn't find a place for in our themed months, or that we just wanted to give each other because it's the Christmas time. It's the time where the only time of the year where we're nice to each other, essentially.
Yeah, 100%.
The rest of the time we hate each other. I don't know how well we mask it in this podcast, but essentially.
Some argue we don't mask it at all.
Yeah. But last episode, we looked at The Nice Guys, which was the movie I gifted you. And this time you gifted me 1999's The Thomas Crown Affair. Chris, why don't you tell us about this one?
For sure. First and foremost, I got to say, we did, as usual, we don't plan, the gift exchange. Like, it is a surprise to both of us when we record. And there was a great moment, if you listen back to our Flash episode, where we talk about, or we unwrap our gifts. And Trev chose The Nice Guys because Shane Black made that movie, and Shane Black, is known for Christmas movies and such. And then I chose for the same reason I chose Thomas Crown Affair. So I chose this because it is directed by John McTiernan, who directed one of the best Christmas movies of all time, Die Hard, and Predator, not a Christmas movie, that one, but The Hunt for Red October, and one of I was going to say one of Chris's, but I'm talking to the third person already, but one of my least favorite movies in history that actually caused McTiernan's career to go off the rails, which we will talk about, Rollerball. I hate that movie. He also directed Last Action Hero, which Shane Black directed. Or wrote, sorry. Shane Black wrote, which is hilarious. Yes. I think it's great connection. Great connection.
And we should also say he also directed Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is the other great Die Hard movie.
Yes.
So
yes,
the two best Die Hard movies are from McTiernan. Hey, Chris, I don't know if you heard, there are some people, this is probably news to you, there are some people who debate whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Have you ever heard about this?
Explain.
Okay, so...
Imagine we went on a diatribe.
Yeah, let's just put our feet down right now. It's a Christmas movie. I think we both agree.
Yeah. Full stop for sure.
Yeah.
This movie is written by Alan Trustman, who actually wrote the original '68 film. I guess he has a story credit. I don't know if he actually wrote the screenplay, but it's a story credit. It is written though by Leslie Dixon, who wrote Overboard, Freaky Friday, Hairspray, and Mrs. Doubtfire. So there's your Pierce Brosnan connection right off the bat. And then F2F alum, Trev, Kurt Wimmer.
Old Wimmy.
Old Wimmy. He directed... did he direct or wrote? I can't remember anymore, but he did Ultraviolet and Salt, both movies.
He directed Ultraviolet, he wrote Salt.
Correct, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't listened to those, listeners, go back to those movies. Those are both great discussions. The budget of Thomas Crown Affair is $48 million. Domestically, it made $69 million. Nice. And then worldwide, it was actually a pretty solid hit. It made $124 million. So very interesting.
Back when that was a hit.
Yes, big time.
Yeah, when 124 was a hit. Today that would be like a huge money loss because the movie would probably cost $400 million for some reason, but $124 million in 99 is a big hit. All you had to do is really cross. Remember those glory days when all you had to do was make it past $100 million? How innocent we all were.
Yeah.
But this is definitely one, last time when we did The Nice Guys, that was a huge bomb, right? The focus of our discussion was how unfortunate it was that nobody saw that movie. But this is like one of those rare cases, for us at least, of a movie that was always fairly well liked and was a big hit, and really has been a lot of sequel talk about this movie over the years. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been kind of a consistent discussion about where's the next Thomas Crown Affair. It's something you've heard pop up a lot. The stars have had to address it. The director has addressed it. So this is kind of, for us, this is a different sort of discussion where we're not looking at a failure. We're looking at one where the discussion really will be, later on will be, well, I guess we'll have to put on our speculating shoes a little bit. Why didn't we ever get that sequel? But then also, again, of course, talk about whether we even think this movie deserved it. But yeah. Definitely a hit.
For sure. We did Black Adam episode And Pierce
I
Brosnan.
already forgot. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah.
But yeah, Pierce Brosnan is in that movie. And we lamented after the fact that we didn't talk much about Pierce Brosnan in that film. So you know what? This is, well, I mean, it's a two-hander, really. And it's pretty even, actually. But I would say let's give him some due right now off the top, because we didn't in Black Adam.
So how does a boy who grows up in a small town in the Republic of Ireland, how does he become a British icon? How do you... Where's your accent is what I'm asking.
The accent got mangled way back there trying to fit in, because I left Ireland in 1964 as a country boy and, trying to fit into a different community, society in South London. It was, I suppose, one of my best performances. Ending up being South London, talking like that, you know what I'm saying, mate? Otherwise,
I do.
Really. Sure. So you want to be part of the community, you want to be part of the gang. And then I realized I wasn't, and I was good at a bit of art. I left school at 15 with a cardboard folder of drawings and got a job in this tiny studio and, like I say, drawing straight lines and watering the spider plants and making cups of tea. And then one day I was hanging my coat up and talking to a guy about theater and movies, and he said, you should come along to this arts lab. It's called the Oval House Theatre Club. And I went through the doors at the age of 18, and it was, the height of the 60s. It was La Mama, it was Grotowski, it was a whole world that was exotic and wonderful to me. And I became an actor.
F2F listeners know that we did our first Success to Series spinoff was about James Bond, the franchise. And we talked a little bit about Pierce Brosnan there. But right off the bat, Trev, Pierce Brosnan, the man, the myth, the legend, who is he to you? What would you say?
Well, I mean, other than all this recent palling around with Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, nobody's perfect, right? But other than that, no, I've always loved Pierce Brosnan, and I probably said something along these lines on the Bond episode, but in a lot of ways, he kind of is my Bond. I mean, for my generation. I actually saw Living Daylights and License to Kill in the theater as well, but I was looking at the release dates now, and I was like 6 and 8 when I saw those. So that was just my kind of like my parents taking me to see them, and like me being like, hey, yeah, it's a movie, as a kid. But I was definitely too young, especially to get those two movies. Those are definitely two Bond movies that have come more around on in recent years, because now I can appreciate like the darkness of them and what the Dalton era was trying to do. Mm-hmm. But GoldenEye, man, that came out, and I was like 15. When you're 15, that's like prime, those teenage years, prime movie going years for you, where you're just so into, the great movies, and just GoldenEye hit at just the right time for me. And that's what really made me a huge Bond fan. So I know his overall run as Bond is now considered kind of spotty, which is ironic because Roger Spottiswoode directed Tomorrow Never Dies. But
wow.
Yeah.
Now who's fired?
You're welcome. But no, I think his like run today kind of has like a little bit of a black eye in it, because the general consensus seems to be that he made one great one and then never again like got to those heights, which I agree. But I quite like Tomorrow Never Dies, and I think Die Another Day is a great bad movie.
Yeah.
I think it's like really enjoyable. A World Is Not Enough I'm not high on, although I do love the opening and the song. But yeah, so like in general, I think his run as Bond is a little unfairly maligned, and I do think you have to acknowledge he was a fantastic Bond. I mean, it's just he looked the part. He's got the suaveness, he's got the handsomeness, he's got the cocky attitude. Yep. He was just so perfect for that role. And so, I didn't watch Remington Steele or anything when I was a kid, so that really was my introduction to him. But instantly made me a fan. Although, like a lot of Bonds, it's not like he had like an amazing post-Bond movie star career, which I'm sure we're going to talk about with this. I mean, this movie even comes out mid-Bond for him. Mm-hmm. And you sometimes see actors in that point too struggle, like, what do I do in the off season from Bond when I'm in it? But no, I've always liked him. He's one of those guys who I think always classes up everything he's in. Like you're always happy to see him, and he brings like a level of gravitas, that voice and just the charm. So yeah, I would definitely say I am a fan. And like I said, to me, the Daniel Craig run is the best run of Bond movies, but still, there's a level of me that wants to always call Pierce Brosnan my Bond.
I think I said it in that Success to Series that Pierce is my Bond in my heart, and Daniel Craig is the best Bond.
Yeah.
You know, like objectively. That's I think how I worded it. So, yeah, same here though. Pierce Brosnan's Bond was seminal in my life as a young man. I'm a little younger than you, but I did start to go see them in the theater with Tomorrow Never Dies with my grandpa. It was kind of our thing. As soon as it would come out, we would go see. We saw them all. He didn't get to see the Daniel Craig versions of the character, but we went to all the Pierce ones after GoldenEye, and Brosnan, like, he just encompasses like complete masculinity, confidence, and charisma. You know, you're just like, that's the guy I want to be when I grow up. He's arrogant, but his charm completely outweighs all of it. So you're not like annoyed by him, and you're not like, oh, fuck this guy on screen. You're like, no, I want to be him. Yeah, he's awesome. I really like seeing Pierce Brosnan in things. Like you said, his post-Bond career didn't really become anything of note in my opinion, but during his Bond run, like, he was in Mars Attacks, you know, I have a special place in my heart for Dante's Peak. Yeah, he's just great to watch, I think. We'll talk about it when we get into the movie proper, of how much of the Bond persona maybe transfers over, which is interesting that he would choose to not only star, but he produced Thomas Crown Affair. So he was heavily involved in actually getting this thing off the ground. So you actually just rewatched the 68 version.
The same day I watched the remake. Yeah, I did a little
bit
of a double feature. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rewatch for me, but I didn't remember like anything really about it. Because it was probably the same. I couldn't remember when I saw it. I guarantee I saw it when this one came out, where I was probably like, well, I'll check that out too. Which I did with a lot of these remakes. And that reminded me actually that this was part of a wave of like remakes of 60s, you know, action thrillers, or, you know, like, there was a whole thing in Hollywood at this time where they wanted to remake these, right? So and it's like, you say like, oh, Pierce Brosnan produced this, not surprising. I think for him this was definitely I'm going to take a famous Steve McQueen role and kind of reclaim it for my own, you know, like that's a putting your like foot down and saying I'm a Hollywood icon too, you know? But yeah, this like falls into the same run to me as like things like Ocean's 11 and The Italian Job, taking these kind of well-known 60s movies and Hollywood remaking them. Now, I know you were probably really confused when you saw that there was a movie that was made in 1968, The Thomas Crown Affair. So I probably have to explain to you who Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway are. Well, I guess you kind of know who Faye Dunaway is because she was in the remake too. But
and she opened up that envelope wrong at the Oscars, which I love.
Yeah, there was a time where she was a young ingenue. I know that's crazy for you to hear, but and honestly, like young Faye Dunaway, like especially Bonnie and Clyde, maybe the most beautiful woman ever on screen. I always say like when like sometimes that comes up on Twitter where they're like, "What's the most beautiful anyone's ever looked in a movie?" And my go-to answer to that is usually Faye Dunaway and Bonnie and Clyde.
Is that because you ran up to her on set being like, hey, Mrs. Dunaway, hey, extra, look what I got here?
Well, you know, Bonnie and Clyde wasn't filmed when it takes place, right? Like,
that's what I just feel like that was the world pre-1988, my birth year. It was just, hey, everybody, hey, we're smoking cigars.
Everybody was driving jalopies and yeah. Yeah,
everybody had those bowler caps all the time, and I
had to get the day off for my barbershop quartet to go on set. It was really ridiculous. But no, anyway, so I do like Steve McQueen quite a bit. He's one of those like iconic movie stars. Have you seen any Steve McQueen movies or no?
I have seen Bullet, especially. It is one of my friend's favorite films, so I have seen Bullet.
Okay. Yeah, he's one of those actors. This is very much a thing of the time, right? And this is going to sound like a dig for a second, but I promise you it's not. It's just that he had particular limitations, right? He was kind of always, to me, I think Steve McQueen was always Steve McQueen on screen. And that's fine. You know, there are certain actors who just do that. We've talked about this before. You know, you have your John Waynes, your Peter Lorre's, your Jason Statham's. There are people who find their things and just like, that's me, you know? But there was just something about Steve McQueen that it just really worked because he was very smart at picking some of his roles. So, with that in mind, knowing that I think young Faye Dunaway is incredible, and I know I've liked other Steve McQueen movies, I sit down the other day and I'm like, I'm going to do the research. I'm going to sit down and watch the 68 Thomas Crown Affair. Snooze alert. This movie is really, really boring.
You don't say.
I get why. Well, no, but see, you're saying, like, I love a lot of 60s movies. I think the 60s and 70s were a great time for cinema. And I really thought like I was going to sit down and enjoy this. And I don't know if I even had a memory of what did I think the first time, but like I get why it was such a big deal at the time. It's really unique for the time. They do. I don't know if you probably saw this in your research, but one thing the director Norman Jewison did that was really different for the time was the movie's filmed with a lot of split screen and like kind of multi-paneled screens, so it looks like a comic book even, where there's like multiple things going on in different panels in the screen to show like when the heist is going on, you're seeing what every single person is doing in the heist on screen at once in different panels, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. There's a lot of cool stylistic stuff. Whenever McQueen and Faye Dunaway are together. And we'll talk about the story, obviously, because they're the same story, essentially.
Sure.
But whenever they're on screen together, the movie does pop, because it's like, oh, yeah, these are two movie stars. And that when they're together, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm watching two movie stars flirt and fall in love. That's great, but it really does plod along in a way that I'm sure Leslie Dixon and Kurt Wimmer and Pierce Brosnan, everyone involved with this one, when they sat down to rework it, there was probably very much an acknowledgement of, we gotta speed this up a little bit. We gotta make this move a little bit more. So no offense to people who love the '68 version. I'm sure of a time it was very, very unique. But unlike other '60s movies that I love, I think it doesn't have the pacing of a modern movie, and not that that's always a bad thing. But this one, I did feel the length, and it dragged for me. So
and before we get in specifics of the new movie, 1999. You're also going into this one with the knowledge of that movie because you've seen this before as well.
That's true too. Although I will say, like, this is a movie that I saw when it came out, quite liked. Probably rewatched a couple times in the immediate aftermath.
Sure.
But hadn't watched in a very long time.
Okay.
I don't know. I know it was a rewatch for you too. We could ask this later, but I don't know how much of it you remembered. But sitting down to watch it, there was definitely a lot that I just completely forgotten. I remembered like the bare bones structure, and I remembered like the final twist at the end because I always thought that was like really great. But there was a lot where I was like, what happens next? I can't quite remember.
Well, two things. Number one, this was my first watch of this.
Oh, it was? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. And we've just never talked about it. It's one of those movies. We just, you don't sit around and be like, hey, have you seen the Thomas Crown Affair?
Yeah, that's another thing too. It's like a huge hit. There's been a lot of sequel talk, but still, it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't come up in conversation a lot.
It was a DVD you see everywhere. From the beginnings of DVD all the way to the start of Blu-ray, the Thomas Crown Affair has an iconic poster, and just their, Rene, Russo, and Pierce Brosnan's faces. It's just kind of like this perfect dichotomy silhouette of them together, and I think that is ingrained in my head. But also the other thing, you're talking about the changes from the original one to make it more exciting for this one. John McTiernan, the director of '99 version, actually made some significant changes in the details of the heisty stuff. I guess in the original, it's bank heist, right?
Yeah.
And this one, he makes it an art heist instead.
The thinking being that he would be a more sympathetic character if he's stealing paintings as opposed to bank heists. And I'll tell you, like, another change, like, and this is what I mean right off the bat. When I tell you this change, Chris, you'll know what I mean by, they're definitely improving things. In the opening heist in the original, because especially for like the first half, very, very similar films, structure-wise. Okay. Certain scenes and lines of dialogue in the remake pulled right from the original. The scene where he goes golfing with those guys and he keeps taking the bet that he keeps losing. And they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, it's a Sunday. What else do we have to do? That's directly from the original. But the opening heist, which is a bank robbery in the original movie, Thomas Crown is not even there. He hires all the guys, and they all go do the heist. And the entire time they're doing it, he's back at his office, and he's just kind of like checking updates on it.
Oh, okay.
And so, whereas in the remake, and I know we haven't said the plot yet, but we just said it's about a thief, Thomas Crown actually is at the heist and is involved, which obviously is such a smart move, because you want your hero, or anti-hero, however you want to look at him in this, you want him to be an active part of the narrative and of the action. So
I like that they did change it to art too, for those reasons you said, especially because there's a line of dialogue in the film where Rene Russo's character, Banning, says, an elegant crime done by an elegant person. And I think it just kind of really encapsulates the character that we're going to watch and who we're going to follow for the next 2 hours. So it's very interesting.
There's a lot of interesting things you get to do with like art as like an object too.
Totally.
And as a narrative piece that you can't do with just money.
And what are they going to do with this art? Obviously when you get money, well, you're just going to spend it, Yep. But the art is like, what is this really about? Is it about, is he going to sell it? Because how is he going to sell something that's worth $100 million? He'll be caught immediately. Is it just because he's doing it for shits and giggles? Is he bored? Is he, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that are just, I guess we'll talk about soon, but I know another thing McTiernan changed was the catamaran race. I guess in the original, there's a boring polo match.
Yep, there is. Yep.
Yeah, not for me. It's funny because sometimes Trev and me, well, I mean, not sometimes, but we always do the research, of course. And when there is like sequels or remakes, like I remember reaching out to Trev saying, hey, before we do the Hellboy movie from like 2019 or whatever the hell that movie came out, I'm thinking about rewatching at least the first Hellboy. And we made an effort to do so. So he reached out to me. He was like, are you going to watch the 68 version? And that was a hard pass. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, actually. But I guess it's nice to have the conversation, though. Trev likes to go the extra mile. As we said last episode about his letterboxd loggings and his diary, please, people, go check that out. It's wild. This man is all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that's just you saying because you're like, I can't believe he watches movies made before Jurassic Park. But
100%. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was the moon landing, and then there was Jurassic Park, and then I don't know 9/11. Like there's like 3 moments in history that I remember.
I was thinking too. Whenever you see like the Méliès footage of like the man on the moon, like the rocket in his eye, you think that is footage from the moon landing.
I'm actually watching First Man, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's crazy. They got such high quality cameras back then.
I refuse to watch First Man because they didn't put those American flags in there.
We have a political guy on the podcast today. Okay, let's talk, I guess, a little bit. I want to mention Rene Russo before we talk about the director, because we've got to give her some due here too.
Thomas Crown was a beautiful movie to do.
It's on constantly on TNT. I'll watch it every time. They suck me in every time.
It has. Well, thank God for Rene Russo. I mean, without her, I would have been dead in the water. So you just have to have a good woman beside you. And John McTiernan directed it.
You know what? You're gonna love this. But you know who Rene Russo is to me?
Well, you dropped the bombshell on us last episode that you have not seen the Lethal Weapon movies. So
Correct.
She's not like I was definitely one of the people who. Actually, again, this is going to be ridiculous, but I saw Major League and Free Jack in the theater before Lethal Weapon 3. Major League, that's fine, but I saw Free Jack. Whatever. Sure. I was seeing everything back then. But no, like the rest of the world, she definitely came into like my awareness with Lethal Weapon 3. But for you,
can you guess? Are you looking at the list?
Yeah, I'm looking at her filmography. I mean, I hope you're not going to say she's just Frigga, because that would be really sad.
No, it's not that. No.
Okay. So I'm gonna say, is it at least? Oh God, I'm gonna take a leap here and hope this is the answer, and it's probably not gonna be. Is it at least Get Shorty?
No.
Oh God, if you say Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, I swear to God.
Okay, I went to that movie with my family, with my mom. My mom took us with it like it was like a double day. I was like 11 years old. It was like a play date with like my mom's friend and their 3 kids, and me and my 2 younger siblings. We all went to go see Rocky and Bullwinkle together. So, Rene Russo will always be Natasha.
Oh my God.
Hey, you signed up to be friends with me. It's in the contract.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's in the contract. Anyway, Rene Russo, she's great. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think she's like a very charming and inviting presence on screen. From what I've seen after Rocky and Bullwinkle.
So the thing that I remember about Rene Russo, and I'm sure you've picked up on this a little bit through like osmosis, probably because when she kind of really did take a big break from acting,
she did, yes.
When she came back in Thor, it was like kind of like, oh, where's Rene Russo been? But up
and Hollywood was like, she's been aging.
Well, okay. So the point I want to make actually, and this is what I want to say. I want to ask you how aware of this you were. 1992, when Lethal Weapon 3 comes out, and as I said, she'd already been in things in small roles, like but Lethal Weapon 3, she is promoted as like the big addition to the movie. She's Mel Gibson's love interest, and she becomes part of the gang, and she's an ass kicker. She's just as tough as he is. She's given a bunch of like fight scenes, and that puts her into like a new stratosphere, right? She becomes like a movie star.
Sure.
But that's 1992. She's 38 at that point. Look, this is me talking about how the media treats this way. I remember the big discussion about Rene Russo always at that point, from that point on in Hollywood, was like, oh, she's the one who's proving that like older women can be like sexy and cool. And it's like, she's like 40, guys. Like, let's calm, but like we talked about that a lot. Like 40 really is like the demarcation point of where women suddenly they talk about this. Their opportunities dry up. Hollywood doesn't give them the same kind of roles. But she broke through that, and it was kind of like, I don't want to use the term MILF because that's so, but Hollywood was treating her that way, right? Whereas like she's the hot, sexy, cool older lady, and so that was always the thing with her. She was the one like teenagers and 20-year-old guys were like, well, that Rene Russo, she might be old enough to be my mom, but a man, I would still, and totally. Like that, and like that, even that you can see like that sexuality and that kind of aspect of her was definitely, I'm sure, factored into her getting cast in this. But yeah, no, I like if you don't want to, and you shouldn't, if you don't want to just dismiss her to it completely, that when she breaks onto the scene at 38, it kind of makes you realize like how much we probably were missing all those earlier years, because she just does have a great screen presence. She's just really, really good. Like I think she's fantastic in Get Shorty. I think she's good in Outbreak, and Tin Cup, definitely the Lethal Weapon movies, although she's kind of sidelined in Lethal Weapon 4 a little bit too much. But yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan. Like I definitely missed her when she was gone and thought it was cool when she came back for Thor, and again, hasn't really done much since then. But hey, it's always nice to see her.
Yeah, even with the Thor movies, like the second movie, spoilers for her character, but she dies. Yeah. And it is, most people think Thor: The Dark World is, lower tier Marvel. And I think most people, though, agree that the stuff with Frigga and her dying is the strongest stuff. So she's actually quite good in that movie and reminds you that she was a movie star when she was, when we had movie stars. And you're right.
She can, like even in Nightcrawler, right? 2014 Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal, she's fantastic in that, right? And
totally.
And that's the thing. Like I don't know. I'm not her agent. I'm not seeing the offers she's getting. I could be wrong about what I'm about to say. It could be that because she's older, she's still not getting a lot of offers, even in a post-Thor, world and everything she had before. But I actually also think with her, especially when you look at that break she took, I think she's just very selective about what she does now. Maybe because she feels like she doesn't have to work as much. And I think she picks the projects she wants to work on. And like, that's too bad for us as audiences. We don't get to see more of her, but I think she's just like, yeah, if something actually strikes my fancy, I'll go do it. But otherwise, you know what? She made a lot of money in the late 90s or mid 90s on into the early 2000s. So I think she's probably good, to a certain degree.
Yeah. Cashing those Bullwinkle checks, Bullwinkle bonuses, as I like to call them.
Yeah, every time you and your family watch it, she gets a residual check.
Rocky residuals. Damn it, that was the joke.
Of course, it's Canadian money, so it's like she's getting negative checks. She has to go to the bank and give them money.
You're probably not wrong. No, I have no rebuttal to that. Okay. John McTiernan. Let's talk about him. The guy, obviously, extremely talented. Some of the best action movies ever made. Back to back to back, by the way. Predator, Die Hard, then Hunt for Red October. Does The Last Action Hero, which we did say we quite enjoy. And I think is kind of getting a resurgence in love. And then he goes with Die Hard with a vengeance, and then just, oh my god, amazing. And then he does the Thomas Crown Affair, which we'll get into. And then, stuff starts to slip after here.
Well, I like 13th Warrior.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, fine. I'll let you have that.
Yeah.
But then he does Rollerball. And right now I'm looking on IMDb. Came out 2002. I remember where I was and who I saw this with when I was in junior high. And I remember all of us went to like the smallest theater in my city, and it was one of those like, remember when you're like dumb teenagers and you have like a Wednesday afternoon because you have nothing to do in the summers anymore and you have no responsibilities and you don't have to pay bills. So we decided to go see Rollerball, and I remember there was 4 of us. We were the only ones in the theater, and then the moment it went into that like night vision scenes. We were all just like, oh no, like this is just bad, right? And then also your lead is Chris Klein, and I'm a Chris, and fellow Chris's unite, but Chris Klein didn't work in that movie, and I'm looking right now, IMDb has it at a 3.1. Rollerball was like my most hated movie for like 20 years until I saw Rubber. So Rubber and Rollerball are at the bottom, but the reason why I'm focusing on Rollerball here.
Now, wait, before you get into that, can I blow your mind for a second? Did you know that Rollerball was a remake of a movie that was made in 1975?
I did know that. Yeah.
I know. I just assumed you didn't because you didn't know movies existed back then. But
I know.
Have you ever?
I want to step on your bit, though.
And I know the answer to this, but you've never bothered to go back and watch that one, have you?
Oh God, no.
Well, this won't surprise you. Much better. Much better.
Yeah, sure. All right.
No, the 1975 Rollerball is awesome. So.
You're being serious.
I'm being serious. Yeah, I love the original Rollerball. Yeah.
Who's in
James
that?
Caan? Come on, James Caan.
I love James Caan.
Yeah.
Love James Caan. I thought you were gonna say just Steve McQueen, and then I was like, I'm just waiting to watch Steve McQueen as that CGI Steve McQueen.
No, you know what the problem with the McTiernan Rollerball is, which I'm sure you're aware of, besides
Yeah.
the night vision. And once I say this, you'll get like the original is like a RoboCop-esque satire about like the marketing of the sport and how the athletes are treated like product and everything. And then the remake is just, I don't know, Rollerball's cool, like it just turned into like a dumb action movie. But,
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I'm pinpointing Rollerball as something seminal to me, and also seminal to John McTiernan, is because this movie is the catalyst for the man going to prison. And the reason why is you know who Anthony Pellicano is, right, Trev?
Well, I know about him because of this story.
Sure.
I mean, this so I know of him from this. Yeah.
So I listened to, I think there was an interview there was like a documentary that came on the last year or two about him.
Yeah.
And so I read up a lot on him then, but he's like the most famous Hollywood PI. But in this case, Rollerball was in complete turmoil in the production, and John McTiernan was trying to get dirt on Charles Roven, the producer, who most people will know was handling the DC universe before James Gunn, right? Like it was Charles Roven and the other guy,
Hamada.
Walter Hamada. That's what it was.
Yep.
So they were running the DC universe at Warner Brothers. So famed Hollywood producer McTiernan allegedly hired Anthony Pellicano to wiretap the guy.
I don't think you have to say allegedly on this one.
Oh, I guess you don't. Yeah, because he was convicted.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he hired Pellicano to wiretap him to get dirt on him to figure out what he was doing to fuck the movie over. Like it's wild. And not only did he do that, he was convicted of that. The judge said he felt that McTiernan felt like he was above the law. He showed no remorse. He lived a life of privilege, and he deserved this because again, McTiernan is kind of a stick in the mud, I would say. Mm-hmm. But he was charged with another count of lying to the FBI, and then for more stuff about perjury things, and then also sued by his ex-wife because he hired Pellicano again to wiretap his ex-wife. So yeah, the guy went to prison for I think a year, and then was in like house arrest for a while or whatever it was. But the man stepped away from directing completely. Hey?
Hard to direct movies in prison.
Well, that too, yeah. Well, those are different kind of movies.
But no, yeah, he hasn't directed anything since. There's definitely been like occasional like talk about McTiernan's gearing up for like a comeback, but it hasn't happened yet. So.
It sucks because, the guy obviously knows action, and to think about all the years that he's kind of just left the industry post-prison, it's a shame to think about all the action movies we may have lost. You know what I mean? He's made some of the greatest of all time. Yeah,
I mean, I will say his style of action went out of favor in Hollywood, in that time, though, too. I don't know what his career would have been if this had not happened, but I could see a world where he is directing things like, like The Beekeeper with Jason Statham or something now. He's directing these small little action movies that nobody cares about except for the hardcore Statham fans or whatever. So I don't know. It's like I just feel like action evolved to something different, and I'm not saying something better. I'm definitely not saying that because I'll take the McTiernan style over modern action,
totally.
Any day, except for like Chad Stahelski films or whatever. But
yeah.
But yeah. The story of the rollerball wiretapping is just so crazy. Like because we do an entire podcast about movies in turmoil, about like Hollywood fuckery, crazy producers, disputes between producers and directors, and the idea of a director just being like, I think this producer's trying to sabotage this movie. I'm going to hire a PI to prove it. Like, what? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, what is the thinking there? Like, what's going on in a man's head when he decides to take that step? I don't. And then flagrantly lie to the FBI about it. Definitely has balls. I don't know if that's. I'm not saying that as a compliment necessarily, but a unique plan for sure.
Yeah, complete backfire. Yeah. So I love the guy's early work. I love a lot of his films, but yeah, he seems like probably a little bit of, well, a dick. But
by the way, did you see this? While he was in prison, his supporters created a free John McTiernan campaign page on Facebook, which included expressions of support from Samuel L. Jackson, Brad Bird, and what's this? Alec Baldwin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think if anything happens with him, McTiernan will do the same thing for him?
No.
Free Baldwin, Yeah, unload Baldwin, as they say.
Oh God.
That was a good one. Come on, that was good. That was good. Okay, you want to talk about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could do like a half an hour on Denis Leary, but we'll save that for another movie down the line, I guess. Yep.
Sounds good.
All right.
I want you to talk about women.
Oh, I enjoy women. A woman could trust me, as long as her interest didn't run too contrary to my own.
This painting is worth $100 million.
They shut off the air to drive out the tourists. Then they close the gates to keep everybody out. Diversion. Make a lot of noise over there. So over here in this room, you can take $100 million off the wall and waltz right out the front door. Oh, that's good.
Oh, yes. Do we know each other?
Not yet. I'm Catherine Banning.
And whose head are you after?
Yours. You're enjoying something, a worthy adversary?
An entertainment.
Do you really think I'm going to sleep with the man I'm investigating?
Always get you mad?
Mm-hmm.
Think you'll get me?
Oh, I hope so. Oh, this must go over.
With whom?
Whomever you bring here.
I never bring anyone here.
Well, you got your hand caught in a cookie jar now. How are you going to get out of it?
You don't believe it's possible that you could ever trust me, do you?
You're transferring assets, getting ready to run.
Suppose I did run. Then what would you have? Not the painting, $5 million fee, and not me.
Do you want to dance? Or do you want to dance?
I want you to do your job. Because right now, you're acting like a junkie.
This is about money.
It's not about the money. We like the chase.
I can leave here tomorrow. So can you.
How can I possibly trust you?
I'm gonna trust you.
Multi-millionaire and playboy Thomas Crown entertains himself by stealing a Monet from an art museum valued at $100 million. When Catherine Banning, investigator for the museum's insurance company, takes an interest in Crown, a complicated and sexy cat-and-mouse game begins between them. Who's playing who? Are they indeed falling for each other? Or is this all just an elaborate Rene Russo? Let's discuss. Come on. Give me the credit.
You couldn't find it, like, will he pierce Brosnan her heart?
That's a good one, too. Okay.
All right. Boy, I'm getting pretty Denis Leary of your jokes over here.
Nice. Oh, fuck yes. This is my favorite episode.
Well, Chris, I went first with the Nice Guys, which was my pick, and since this was your pick and it was a first time watch for you, I'm going to let you go first because I'm curious to hear what because this is I'll just preface this. I'm going to let you go first, but I'll preface it by saying this is definitely a 1999 movie, right? This feels very different than a lot of movies we get today. So as a first time watch coming to it in 2023, curious to hear what you thought.
Yeah, honestly, it's a simplistic conversation I think we will have, but that's kind of what it is. It's just a simple, fun, romantic, sexy heist movie. An engaging character drama made by adults for adults. And I think this is a movie that time forgot. We just do not get movies like this at all, especially with this, kind of cast, this much money. It's steamy, it's sultry, something with movie stars, and we've said we lament the days of the movie star, and this is one that, Pierce Brosnan is an absolute movie star. It's just an elegant little caper, and I think it kept me guessing, and I don't think it's like the greatest thing ever made. Like I'm not like, oh my god, why didn't we get 10 Thomas Crown Affair sequels? Kind of like we did with The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys, I was like, oh man, give me one of these a year, make them like Saws. But Thomas Crown Affair was just a really enjoyable romp. And I really liked these characters. I found them just captivating in that movie star way. And yeah, like I said, it kept me guessing. It's letting the audience know what Crown has done, but yet I'm still, questioning why. Does he really like her? Does he like, or does she like him? And I just found their chemistry really great. I watched a Ebert review from At the Movies. It wasn't with Siskel. Siskel had passed by now, but he didn't quite like the movie, and he thought they didn't have chemistry, which was shocking to me. And I kind of want to bounce that off of you here, but he said it was too focused on, like they were too focused as characters on the game, the cat and mouse game, which me personally, I think is more interesting, but also they are both like wildly attractive and obviously into each other. So, Ebert wasn't always correct in my opinion. I just always loved like reading him and listening to him, but sorry, Roger, you were wrong when it came to me. But I want to ask you, like, how did you feel, I guess, revisiting this after I don't know how many years?
Yeah, a long time. You said sexy and sultry. I'm going to throw another S word in there because I think I can sum it all up with one particular S word: solid. This is just a solid movie. And like I said, it's not the greatest thing you'll ever watch, but this falls into that category for me. I know I've talked to you about this before. I can't remember if it's come up in the podcast. Probably has, but there are certain kind of movies which I call like Sunday afternoon movies. They're like the movies you can just have on in the background. They're going to be on like TNT or TBS like Sunday afternoon, and you'll just you're doing housework or whatever, and then you have it on, and like every once in a while you get kind of roped into it and you sit down for a bit and you watch it. That's what this is. This is like the ultimate one of those, which I mean as a compliment, because it's just the kind of movie that we don't necessarily get anymore. It's not trying to be the biggest blockbuster in the world. It's just coasting, right? And I mean, again, not in a negative way, but it's confident that it can coast on the charisma of the stars at its center. It's a star-powered driven movie. I thought they had chemistry for sure. I don't agree with Roger Ebert. I think it is a sexy movie, and I think they are sexy together. I will say the biggest problem I had with it this time, and this is what I do want to have a discussion with you about, because I wonder if this is just me or if it was getting to you too. I will say, if anything about this movie has not aged very well, it is the sexual politics of the film. And I do think at a certain point, the movie, it's produced by Pierce Brosnan. It was definitely very star-driven for him. It was a star project. I do think the movie at a certain point kind of starts shitting on the agency of Rene Russo's character. And it becomes a little less equal to what I wanted, to what the early parts of the movie are, and what I wish it was all the way through. You know what I think a better example of this movie is? The year before this movie, in 1998, Steven Soderbergh's Out of Sight with Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney, which is another like really sexy, like cat and mouse, star, mega movie star driven, romantic thriller, and those two are like equal throughout, from beginning to end. They're playing a constant game of one-upmanship, and there is a point in this movie where it's suddenly like she just falls for him, and you see her kind of ready to give up her career and everything she's worked so hard for to protect this guy and be with him. And it did, and like, because he is very manipulative, it can sometimes play like a gaslighting movie to that degree. So I'm not like, I'm sure everyone's now going, oh God, here comes the woke police. And it's not even that for me. It's just more that I think if they kept her as equal as he would, it would just be a more interesting movie to me. I think like I want to see both characters be equal throughout the entire thing. So that was my only problem with that this time. That said, I still think the movie is so well directed, and like the individual sequences are so strong, and it ends on such a clever, reverse heist and everything that it's like that can bother me, but I still walk away from the movie like just flat out enjoying it because it's such a fun watch.
So two things. I want to just jump on the directing because that's where you left off real quick. But I think McTiernan just loves a team heist. He's so good at it. Die Hard especially, some parts of Predator even because it's a bunch of people together, doing a mission. But he's so good at staging everyone's roles almost entirely through visual language and editing. I think it's really, really good. There's not a lot of just talkiness to the plan. It's just happening to you as the viewer, so it's very exciting. Now, with the sexual politics of it, I see what you're saying. I guess why it didn't feel as too bad for me is I found Banning a character. I think she starts out hard-edged, but I think almost overconfident, And I think what's happening is Crown is digging into her insecurities in the sense that, like, because she's just a really real person in this movie. Thomas Crown isn't as real to me. I think Banning
we'll
is.
Too, yeah.
And I think Russo's portrayal especially humanizes the character, And I think she does make mistakes and she does, succumb to the charms of Crown because duh. And I think I totally understood why Banning would get swept off her feet. And I didn't take it as like she's being totally master manipulated. I just felt like she's the most human character that I'm watching. And I think if James Bond took me on a plane ride to fucking Mexico or whatever, and I spent there in a villa for 5 days and then, yada, yada, I think I would, no matter how powerful or headstrong I am, I'd probably succumb to, well, I don't want to, well, hold on, let's take my, I would, have a hard time resisting.
You said she's the most human character, but have you ever seen an actual human being chug a Pepsi One like that?
Dude, and not belch? Right here, I said the most unrealistic, that's so funny. The most unrealistic scene, Russo downs a whole Pepsi and doesn't belch her fucking face off.
So I again want to say, like, I'm looking at this more from the perspective of what would serve the movie the best and what would make the movie more exciting and more interesting to me, right? Because I don't disagree that obviously in real life it would be possible for someone to get just completely swept up in the world of Thomas Crown. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm denying that that's possible, but I think for me, I don't want to see that happen to this character. Even when the movie starts doing it, when she starts to like lose her composure a little bit, starts to fall for him, I'm always waiting in the last act for the moment where you find out that that's an act on her part too, right? And she's sucking him in now.
Whoa.
No, we'll talk about that scene too. But she's tricking him, and you could still have it be romantic, and you could still have it be a cat and mouse game, and you could still insinuate that they do have feelings for each other. But I just wish in the third act that there was still a sense of her having some power in the relationship as well, and not just becoming completely subservient to him, which I think she does, because she starts off such a strong character, and I think I believe the movie would be better. And I guarantee you, and whether you say this is a positive or negative, I guarantee you if we get another remake of this, which we'll talk about coming up soon, that is one thing that will be changed. I bet you, like dollars to donuts. Like there is going to be more consideration given to the woman has to be completely equal all the way to the end.
Yeah, it'll be the Tammy Crown affair for sure. I know what you mean, and I don't really want to spoil the ending as much right now. Like just right now, but I am in agreement agreement.
Agreement. Yeah.
I am in.
I don't know how they say it in Canada.
Oh, damn, you stepped on my second take. God damn, no, I have to keep it in. But the final scene is a little bit like...
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We're on the same page there.
Yeah.
I do love, though, like speaking from the beginning with her character, I love that right away she knows it's this guy.
Yeah.
That's so interesting to me. I've never really seen a heisty caper cat and mouse game where, right off the bat, it's like, no, it's him. And I got to prove it. And I'm going to do it by any means necessary. Just trust me. I'm going to break in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go around the law, not above the law, but around it, because I am not a detective. I actually work for an insurance company. So you know what? I got my means and this is what I do for a living. And I'm going to make tons of money doing it. And I'm good at what I do. And I think it's just a great back and forth with these two characters. It's awesome. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, to give credit where credit's due, that is straight from the original. Like the idea of her knowing immediately and just instantly zooming in on him and even telling him that she knows. That's very much, like I said, the first half of this in particular is very, very close.
Sure.
But I will say, like I mentioned in the original, and this is probably the last thing I'll say about this because I don't want to make this a comparison. Suffice to say, this is much better than the original, I think.
Yeah.
But one element where it is that even though I said McQueen and Faye Dunaway both have that movie star quality and they're great on screen together, the like sexual charisma of Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo just blows them out of the water.
Yeah.
And now, granted, some of that is what you're allowed to do in a 1999 movie as opposed to a 68 film, and this movie sure shows that. But also some of it is just Pierce Brosnan definitely plays the part sexier. He's bringing all of the Bond charms to this, not the Bond tuxedos, which he was not allowed to wear, but he's definitely bringing the charm. You heard about that, right?
Yeah, I did. How it's kind of it's rumored to be a contractually obligated thing for Bond actors not to appear in tuxedos and also not wear black bow ties.
Yeah, so
very cool.
whenever he's like in a nice suit in this, it's like the top is unbuttoned or whatever, and then if he has a bow tie, it's white. But yeah, no, he brings all the Bond charm to this, and he's a sexier Thomas Crown than Steve McQueen was. Steve McQueen was just kind of more, he's a handsome rich guy, and of course any woman would go for that. But Pierce Brosnan is like, I mean, people are dripping wet watching this movie. Let's face it. But,
yeah, 100%. You slipped in your chair. Actually, it's crazy.
multiple times.
No, I agree. And his charm too, he's charming to the point of being like almost a superhero at it, and like it's more fun. It's so unrealistic, but it's fun.
Yes.
But I think what's cool with his confidence is that like, in the beginning where the original heist happens for this painting and then it goes screwy and then Thomas Crown actually gets the painting himself and then it's revealed that, well, he actually orchestrated the entire thing. And during the first 15 minutes of the movie, dude's walking around, he closes a merger for $30 million more than asking. He gets to the museum on time. He's never rushing. He gets a new suit. He charms with his staff. He charms the guards. He gets the goods. And it all just is kind of happening. And it's fun. I'm Mr. Rules guy on this podcast. You're Mr. Rewrite the movies. I'm Mr. Rule the movies, And this one I felt... It is unrealistic, but I'm having such a good time watching this guy with all this confidence that I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like he orchestrated it. He hired these like Eastern European people and he got them all to band together to get fucking captured anyway. And I just go with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's something that speaks again to how well the movie is directed and how just how much you can get sucked into like a well-made heist movie if the pieces are moving along cleverly and the pacing is strong. Is what could be a ding for me here, but ultimately doesn't bother me very much, is the fact that Thomas Crown is not a very interesting character. Because you call him a superhero, I would even say he's just kind of like a one-note cliche.
Sure.
Right? Like he's just handsome art thief, and the movie never explains his backstory. We never get like the psychology behind what he's doing. That's another thing which I'm sure would be put in a modern version where we learn like why he's so obsessed with art, what this particular painting means to him, where does this like daredevil attitude come from, what happened to him in his childhood. This movie doesn't bother with like any of that. He's almost kind of a cipher for the entire movie. Like he's just almost like I'm just going to say it, but again, in this movie, it's not a negative, but he's very much just like a chess piece that is used to move the plot from the one part to the next, right? Which is ironic because there was a very famous chess scene between Faye Dunaway and Pierce Brosnan, or between Faye Dunaway and Steve McQueen, the original that they left out of this one. But yeah, he's just a symbol more than an actual character. But the movie is like so effective that really doesn't matter. It would have been interesting to see if they had sequels. Could you keep doing that, or would you have to start adding more and more layers to him? I think you would you just would by default. You'd have to start diving into the psychology of Thomas Crown a little bit more. Now they try to make a play at that in like the laziest way possible, and I do want to ask you about these scenes, which are clearly just in the movie so that they could have Faye Dunaway in there. The psychiatrist scenes, which are just awful and could be entirely removed and like wouldn't matter. Like they really feel like, I even wonder if they were just added in reshoots. Like they got Faye Dunaway to agree and they're like, shit, just throw in 3 scenes where he meets a psychiatrist, because she never plays into the plot. They never are not in that office, and she's just speaking out loud like stuff that the audience is kind of figuring out. They're like exposition driven scenes. Hated those parts. I get that they like wanted to say, oh, see, we're not pissing on the original, we got Faye Dunaway, but no thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, they felt like deleted scenes that were thrown in at the last second. It's I don't even think that they share the same frame.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's a lot of shot, reverse shot in all that. But yeah, completely useless. And she's odd in the movie. She's like the worst shrink ever. And she's like playing it very hyper, hyper, I guess. Like she's very big. She's playing it very big, and it makes no sense because nobody in the movie is actually playing it super big. Like not even Thomas Crown, I would say. Like he's more even keel throughout the whole movie, while his therapist is like kind of a mad woman.
Peter Pan decides to grow up and finds there's no place to land.
I didn't really get it.
And because of other movies like this, the way my brain is trained is I'm thinking like as I'm watching those scenes, like these can't be as pointless as they seem, right? There must be something to this. And I swear, I don't know if you had this thought or it's just me, but I swear at a certain point I was like, at the end of one of these, is he going to be like, all right, thanks, Mom, or something?
Totally.
Right? It's going to be like, is that going to be the connection? Because you feel like there's got to be something more to this. But nope, she's just a shrink, and he's just meeting with her, and I'm like, oh well, then why if she played into the narrative somehow, or we learned she had some personal connection to him, it would almost justify it. But as is, they could have easily been cut.
I completely agreed. Yeah. I want to talk about just a little bit more of like the sexiness of the movie. Like, of course, I think it's you can't get around it, and I think it adds so much to the movie, and I think it's something that's lost in modern cinema nowadays.
This movie would make kids today their heads explode.
Oh, more than that explode, but yes, for sure.
The no sex scenes in movies ever crowd would have a field day with this.
Oh, for sure. Like, me and Trev have talked about this, maybe not as much on the podcast, maybe in the Friday the 13th episode a little bit, but I think in private we talk a lot about how just movies today are very sexless. And even romantic connections are just more or less lip service in movies. It's never really shown. Hell, especially in our superhero movies, like people don't even kiss anymore. Like remember one of the sexiest scenes in cinema was actually Spider-Man 1. The original with Tobey Maguire, where the upside down kiss. Like people were doing that for years after that. And we're not even close to that era anymore. And this movie in '99. This was Rene Russo's first nude scenes of her entire career. And as Trev said before, she was a little older for Hollywood's way of thinking.
McTiernan pulled me aside and said, listen, Rene, why don't we just try it with your top off? I went, no, I don't. He goes, look, you can go and see the dailies, and if you don't like it, I promise you, we won't use it. And I said, I don't think so. He said, look, I promise you, you'll go in there. If you don't like it, we'll show it to you both ways, and it'll be fine. I'm sure he had that planned all along.
Well,
so I
rest
did.
assured, you look beautiful. They are beautiful, and it works well. Freeze frame. Forever there.
I was
Forever
dying.
there,
Oh, thank
Russo.
you, Pierce. Oh, God.
If not now, when?
And, Pierce and co helped her through it to get through it. And she's excellent. You'd never know that this was her first nude scene because she has such confidence in it. And it's so casual. And that's what I think I loved so much about the movie is that it's casual sex and casual nudity. The closest thing to that actually happened this year in Oppenheimer. Remember the scene in Oppenheimer when Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy have sex and then they're just sitting in chairs naked talking. And
I don't remember that because I'm not a perv. I remember all the discussions about the bomb and all the thematic issues. But if you say so. You say there's nudity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess you never saw it because wasn't that edited for like Chinese audiences or something? Right. You watched the China feed? But yeah, what struck me about that scene is, first of all, I was watching that in a packed IMAX theater and watching these two, beautiful people sitting there naked talking. And all I felt like was, oh, that's like so real. That's so natural. Something about movies now when there's a sex scene or something, you can see the actors totally trying to cover up or, you never see like the post-coitus conversation the way it should or does happen in real life. And I feel like when you have such casual nudity in films, it kind of does bear the the character down to their true selves. And I think in this movie, to see both of these characters shed maybe even their, metaphorical cloak to each other, I think was really, really works. You know what I mean? And I think it's just something that we just do not see in movies anymore. And that's why a movie like Oppenheimer it struck me like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, I mean, look, do all movies need to have nudity or sexuality? No, of course not. Is it sometimes overly exploitative in certain movies? Of course. Are sometimes actresses in particular asked to be put into positions that they shouldn't be? Yes, for sure. And do I think it also might be even a little unfair that Rene Russo is nude as much as as she is, and Pierce Brosnan is not, right?
Sure.
I'm like the guys in Always Sunny. I think these actors should hang dong every once in a while too. Why not?
Yeah, I've been waiting for the right time to bring this up, but I feel like we need to address the elephant in the room, no?
Yeah, this is a big one for us.
I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the dong?
But that all said, sexuality does exist in real life, and that's why I think it's ridiculous to try and censor it completely out of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it feels so real in this movie, like just the detail of her, like kind of, they're in this private like cabin on this like private island. She's probably gonna walk around without a top on, and that feels real. And there is also something to as we said, she is in her 40s making this film. He was, I believe, 46 when he made this. I know that because I looked it up, because there's a part in the movie where during one of those therapy sessions they say he's 42, and I was like, I'm 1 year older than Thomas Crown, and I looked at it, oh, okay. And then that made me laugh because he was 46 when he made it, and I think that's very, very funny when an actor who has so much control is like, can we just say I'm 42 instead of 46? Like, it's like, come on, dude.
It's like the bit in Seinfeld where he scratches out his jean size, his waist size. Yeah, 100%.
But again, not that I want to play up into a part of like that over sexualization of Rene Russo, but there is something great about seeing a woman of her age in hot sex scenes in like a Hollywood movie, and like like an age appropriate couple, first of all, entirely, and like showing that yes, sexuality still exists when people are like older than 30, which you wouldn't believe from watching a lot of Hollywood movies. So that's what's awesome about it too. Is like I remember this when it came out, like the general consensus was this is a sexy movie, and people like want to see these two actors have sex. And like that's pretty cool, considering she was at the age at this point where Hollywood would probably be like, so you're playing like the great grandma in the next movie, right? So, and which obviously is ridiculous because she is super sexy in this. But yeah, so that's why I have like the sexuality in this is like a boon to the movie, because it does speak to a different era, and I do miss these kind of adult, hot thrillers. I mean, not that this is like. This isn't an erotic thriller. I wouldn't call it that.
No, me neither.
But even the fact that they decided to throw in like nudity sex scenes in a movie that didn't necessarily, have to have them, probably would have been maybe a success without them, speaks to, a mature attitude about the filmmaking, which I appreciated.
I'm very private in some ways when it comes to, look, certain things you just leave in the bedroom. So I'm not the kind of actress that really leads with a sexual or sensual spirit. McTiernan knew that. And so he constantly was coming up to me and saying, Rene, you're leading with your humor. Don't. Just zero in on Pierce and do it. Man, and he had to tell me so many times. I mean, I couldn't have done that.
You said you were leading with your humor.
Yeah, like whenever I wanted to block anything, I would make a joke. I would make a joke, or I would do something to sort of,
Sure.
sort of just not go to where he wanted me to go.
Sex.
And also, the sex looks fun.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I think that's what struck me the most about, especially their big sex scene, where they're just
laughing during the sex.
They're laughing, they're joking around, they're having sex all around the house, on the staircase, in the bed, and then like he's doing stuff to her, and he comes up for air, and he's like, "Oh, you're a magnificent woman." And she's basically being like, "Go back and do your thing," and they're having a great time, and I think. Sometimes there's such a demonization of sex, just especially in modern day cinema and just, the world in general, I think. And you know what? It should be fun. And I don't remember a movie I saw like this that showed sex to be fun. It was having a fucking great time. And even the Oppenheimer one I mentioned, the Oppenheimer one is like, he says the "I am become death, destroyer worlds" while he's fucking her, and it's like, no, I don't. This is too much. It doesn't seem fun. Well, this one,
I know you had to pull your pants up in the IMAX theater,
Yeah, exactly. I had to clear the room. It took a while. But yeah, this one is just, I just in big capital letters, I said, this looks fun. And I think it's a big part of why this movie is remembered. Like Trev said, the other S is it's solid. It's not a masterpiece. It's not the fucking best thing ever. But man, is this movie memorable. Even to me who hasn't seen it, I know about certain things because of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, can we talk about the other player in the mix? Speaking of sexy and funny.
Wow. A hard left turn.
Because if you're talking sexy, let's talk this haircut, baby.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Rocking one of the worst haircuts ever put on screen. Denis Leary as the detective who is assigned to this case, and ultimately is essentially Rene Russo's partner. I don't know if we've ever had a chance to talk about Denis Leary we won't get into the entire Denis Leary thing in terms of comedy or whatever, but
sure.
Screen presence, Denis Leary. What do you think? What do you in general, not this movie, but are you a Denis Leary fan? Like, are you happy to see him and stuff? What do you think?
Well, I do like Denis Leary. There's something about him. I think he's not a movie star, but he's a guy you watch.
Yeah.
If he's on screen, you're like, oh, fucking Denis Leary, And I think I just like seeing him in movies. He's got a presence to him that he's brazen. He's a bit cacophonous, in the way he talks, and I just like seeing him. Like, I know he's usually a foil, or he's usually a guy that you gotta go up against, and I think he's just that perfect level of antagonism, yet he's endearing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the guy. I've never not liked him. I've never seen his show Rescue Me. I know that's like his big show that was on.
I was
for many
really
years.
into it for a while, and then I feel like it dipped. It kind of started to just be like, this is going too long. Yeah.
But the first time I ever saw him was, Trev, do you want to guess?
God, okay. Hold on one second.
Okay,
Let me
go
bring
back.
up his filmography.
Yeah, I would like you to guess this one as well.
Okay. Well, I want it to be Demolition Man, but I'm guessing.
But you know that the first time I saw it was with our movie nights years ago.
That's right. So was your first time seeing him? Oh God, is it Operation Dumbo Drop?
Yes, it was. So that was my first Denis Leary performance. Again, what was I? I was probably like 6, 7 years old when that movie was out. So,
have you ever gone back and watched The Ref?
I have not. No.
Oh man, you should add that to your December rotation this year. It's a great Christmas movie.
Oh really?
Yeah. It's got your favorite in it, Kevin Spacey. I know you love him.
I am a Kevin Spacey fan. now that clip is now been edited out somewhere. Yeah, Denis Leary, like I am a fan of his comedy for the most part. He's one of those guys, especially nowadays. I feel like anytime you see him in something, you're like just waiting for him to say something horrible, inappropriate, or he's like always seems like he's just something about him where I don't know what his politics are necessarily. I think I can probably guess. I don't know, maybe that's being unfair, but whatever. Like Mr. Politics this episode, eh? Wow, I like him
with reservations, but no, I agree with that. I think he's a great screen presence. I think he's almost like, I don't know. I mean, maybe even a better screen presence than even he realizes, And I think Rescue Me, like I said, I really like the first couple of seasons, but I'll tell you, he did a show before Rescue Me. It only lasted one season, unfortunately, called The Job, where he was a detective, like a half-hour cop comedy. That was great. Like, I don't know if it's probably not streaming anywhere. It's just like lost content at this point. But if you can ever like find episodes of that on YouTube or whatever, definitely check that out. His character in this actually reminds me a little bit of his character from The Job. But yeah, he's someone he plays cops and firemen well. Like he just has that. He feels real in that world, right? He feels real in this. I hate the haircut, but I like that the movie doesn't treat him as a joke. It would have been very easy to make him the foolish detective that keeps getting like one-upped and is like so frustrated, or make him like the cop that we hate because he's coming after the hero of the movie, like Thomas Crown. But the movie just treats him like a guy doing his job. He's actually very respectful to Rene Russo's character. Mm-hmm. If at a certain point in the movie, if she decided to be with him instead, I actually think most of the audience would like accept it. I think he is actually... The movie never goes full out into making it a love triangle, but it plays it just well enough to where that could almost work. And I think, for like what, for what is somewhat of a thankless role in that he doesn't ultimately influence the story in any big way, he's still like a great part. He's like, he's a great third part of the triangle in this. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I quite like him in this.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's not played for a fool. I think you can tell that he knows something's up. He knows that either one of them are succumbing to each other's charms. Like maybe, Thomas Crown, maybe we can bring him in because of her. Or this guy's going to take her away because he's too good at what he does. And I think he's a really great character to watch. I liked him a lot in here. I'm kind of just echoing what you said. I don't really have anything else to add, but I think he's just a really good, solid piece of casting for the third I guess ringer, third star. I don't know, third play.
Yeah. Now, can I briefly talk about something I don't like, and I am curious to hear your thoughts on this, because who knows?
Yes.
This could be a disagreement. Okay. But let's go into score horror for a second.
Yeah, Bill Conti.
Do I love Bill Conti's Rocky theme? Of course. Is it one of the greatest themes of all time? Of course. Do I find his Thomas Crown score to be ultra annoying throughout most of the movie? Yes, I do. So he's going for like this like jazz influenced score, I guess, because they're like, yeah, it's like the 60s, Thomas Crown affair. But so that movie had a lot of style, a jazz kind of movie, right? And boy, I wish he wasn't, or boy, I wish they'd gotten a different composer. Because as much as I like the movie, and as much as I think the sequences were very well directed and everything, very often the out of place nature of the score was kind of pulling me out at times. And I would not say I was a fan of the music in this. I love when Nina Simone's Sinnerman comes on in the end.
Same.
With the
Same.
Yeah, that's great, obviously, but the score, not so much. What do you think?
Well, could I maybe defend the score by saying the score itself is keeping you guessing, as the film is? So it's doing jazz arrangements because jazz is kind of, the artists just trying stuff out and keeping you on your toes or whatnot, and you don't exactly know where they're going to go. Are they going to go left, right, whatever they're going to do? And I feel like maybe the film is doing that as well. So I think I didn't love it. I'm with you there. I'm not. It's no Rocky theme, that's for sure. It's off-putting, but maybe by design. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but could you maybe see that point of view?
Maybe. My only argument would be if you wanted to be like that pretentious about it, I could come back with I could double down and uno your pretension by saying, well, thematically that doesn't make any sense because you said the jazz score is because jazz artists are just always trying things, do whatever they want. But Thomas Crown is a character who always has a plan and always knows exactly what he's doing, and everything is orchestrated to the 10th degree. So
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess I was saying more keep the audience guessing. But
yeah, or I could just say it sucks and move on.
This is sometimes when we have conversations about movies and you won't drop it, and I just want to say that too. Okay, what happened next? Why didn't this movie happen? Why didn't sequels happen? Firstly, do you think this movie deems a sequel? Where do you think a sequel could go? Do they have to... Can we... Wait, hold on. First of all, spoilers, everyone. Spoilers. Because at the end of the movie, Thomas Crown beats down Banning mentally so hard. And this is where I would agree with Trev that maybe it gets a little bit... Maybe icky is the word, but he does manipulate her pretty big time, that she is like on a plane and she's, going home or whatever she's doing, and she's getting drunk, and then he taps her on the shoulder and he's like, we're going to be together, basically. And then she's pissed off at him, but then jumps in the seat and just starts making out, and then, okay, of course they're going to be together.
I'll tell you what. You pull a stunt like that again, I'll break both your arms.
Now, does the sequel have them do heists? Like, is that what they're doing now? Like, are they now a twosome in this? Or are they on the run from this one crime?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me the sequel I would write, it would be them on the run, but because I would try to bring back some of her agency, it would be a big plot element of the movie would be her starting to wonder if she did the right thing,
Sure.
and maybe trying to think like, oh, should I turn this guy in, or him going and doing something too far. Although the movie, I mean, that's tough because obviously the movie plays it as like he's never malicious, he's never trying to hurt anybody. He is just stealing art, and quite frankly, McTiernan was right. Like, well, I don't really care about bank robbers either. If a bank robber doesn't hurt anybody, then it's kind of like, well, that money's insured, like whatever, capitalism sucks. So, but like art is definitely like to me like pretty, these fucking rich fucks looking at paintings, whatever, steal that stuff. That's right.
And almost always just money laundering.
Yeah. But yeah, I would. I think you could play it to where like maybe she starts to like regret the decision she made, and that is like at least part of the story. I will say everything I read about potential sequels did not mention her at all.
It sounds like she wasn't coming back.
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds
what I
like
mean.
she didn't
Like,
want
and
to.
that-
She
I
didn't
don't-
actually want to do it.
Was it that she didn't want to do it? Because that's what I wondered about. Because I could also just see it being, it's kind of thing. It's called the Thomas Crown Affair, right? It's not called the Thomas Crown and Banning Affair. And Pierce Brosnan coming from that Bond world where there's a different Bond girl every time, I could see him being like, well, I guess every time it's Thomas Crown and a different female lead,
Right.
Because I know there was discussions about Angelina Jolie and Charlize Theron for like a sequel. Now, before I answer your question about do I think this merits sequels, I do want to run a theory by you and see what you think. Because we said like this movie was a hit, well liked, made a lot of money. Sequel discussions definitely started happening pretty quickly, I feel like. Why didn't it happen? I do think that because we talked about, it's a movie that it's kind of always been around. People talk about sequels, but it didn't have the same kind of staying power. In terms of like heist movies and movies about cool thieves, 2 years later, another movie came along that kind of ate this movie's lunch and stole all its thunder, and that is Ocean's 11.
Oh, yeah.
And I think with Ocean's 11 turning into the huge franchise it was, I think that like people just didn't have like the mental capacity to even care about Thomas Crown anymore, Because like as like solid as Thomas Crown was, Ocean's 11 to me is like that first one is like a perfect movie, and it's just like dripping with so much style and cool, and it's got forget 2 movie stars. What if we have like almost 11 movie stars? Yeah. So I do think that I honestly do think the Ocean's franchise probably hurt this movie in terms of getting sequels. Do you agree with that?
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're so right. I was going to come at it from a response of just Pierce being so done with Bond at this point, being like, I don't even really want to do a Bond adjacent again.
See, I don't agree with that because I know he like loves this character, and I think like I think, and even when Bond,
but
ended,
even the audience, right? Because people hate Die Another Day, which only happened 3 years later.
But he wanted to do one more. We have to remember that, right? When he still wanted to do one more Bond movie, and he's always kind of regretted that he wasn't allowed to. So I would imagine when Bond ended, especially him feeling like he kind of got unceremoniously shown the door there, you would think he'd be like, well, at least I have this backup franchise and a character that might even just be kind of more fun than Bond. Because like the one thing about Thomas Crown is, yeah, you have the '68 movie, but still, that's not like it's an untouchable classic, clearly. And so, when you make a Bond movie, you have to do what the Broccoli's want, and you have a lot of like you have to make sure you're keeping the sacrosanct of that franchise. Thomas Crown, you could be like more risky with. So yes, I do think you could have made sequels to this. I think you'd have to be cognizant of not just making the same movie every time. It can't just be what's the heist and like is someone trying to get Thomas Crown. You have to and like I said, I really do think you'd have to start to unveil more layers of Thomas Crown. You'd need a villain who is from his past or something, and this is the risk too, because everything I'm saying for what you would need in a sequel is also what might make it start to get kind of cheesy as it goes along. Yep. So like maybe that's why it's a good thing there's no sequels. Maybe this is a good just standalone. Would I watch sequels? Yeah, I think the character's fun enough that I'd be interested, but I also just worry that in trying to figure out how to tell a new story, you might have to start doing dumb Marvel type stuff where it's like, and now here's his brother, Larry Crown. That's a crossover movie. But
it took me like 1 second to be like, wait a second, I've seen that movie.
No, but even like it turns out, like I said, like his mom and dad are also thieves or something. You'd have to start pulling stuff like that, I feel, and it might be a bad move.
Yeah, it either becomes cheesy MCU cinematic universe nonsense, or it goes a little too deep and dark with like maybe he goes on a heist and he accidentally kills someone. And then we got to get into like the dourness of Thomas Crown, which is like not really what you're signing up for. You know what I mean? So you're kind of damned if you do or damned if you don't with this one.
I mean, maybe the best version would be just a flat out comedy where he's like trying to teach Bannon now how to be a thief and she's like terrible at it. Right, like just like play up the jokes of it, but
they start like a university or something.
Yeah, with that, but like would that justify a movie that audiences want to see? I don't know. It's a tough one. I think that probably plays a part in it too. Like not only it could no longer be like the best and the most popular like thief franchise going, but I think it's just also a tough nut to crack about like what do you do? That's just not another heist movie.
Well, again, the reason why people like this movie and it's remembered is because of the cat and mouse of these two specific characters, right? And them of their like will they, won't they, and who's in it for the real reasons, right? By the end of this movie, you kind of know. So that whole dramatic angle is gone. So you'd have to really, like you're saying, you'd have to totally reinvent it, either one avenue
it's funny.
or another.
I was just thinking in my head, I was like, oh, you know what they'd probably have to do for a sequel? Is you'd have to have some villain show up and like force Thomas Crown to do like a heist that he doesn't want to do. Like, and then I was thinking that like, oh, that's what the sequel would be. And then suddenly in my head I was like, oh, that's what Ocean's 12 is about. So that's even I'm doing it, right? That's like that's the thing. Like they made 3 of these in the other series, and it's like, what can you do that they're not doing over there?
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I guess I get it. Like I guess I get why it didn't take off. Like you said, Angelina Jolie, Charlize Theron were tapped to play, especially when Paul Verhoeven. Speaking of, you already mentioned RoboCop earlier. Paul Verhoeven was in talks to direct in 2007, but in 2009...
and then you say that, and suddenly I'm entirely on board again. I'm like,
totally.
Verhoeven's doing it. Yeah, talk about a sexy movie, probably. But
yeah, and like honestly, maybe even like a total deconstruction satire on the whole genre itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, development hell. Brosnan talks about this movie all up to 2013. Just can't get it off the ground. In 2014, John McTiernan, after his prison release, has an interview with Empire Magazine, and he says he wrote a script in prison. He called it Thomas Crown and the Missing Lioness. So supposedly he has a script in his
drawer.
it
Thomas Crown and the Dropped Soap. Like what? No, didn't get that one.
No, I got it. I let it hang because mine's always on a rope.
Right what you know. That's what I'm saying. That's probably what McTiernan was thinking.
And then recently, the most recent, I guess, is 2016. Michael B. Jordan talks to MGM about adapting a new story with the hopes of being in the lead. But then in 2023, MGM is bought by Amazon. Mm-hmm. So supposedly... it's part of the never-ending content machine at Amazon Studios that they want to do. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll get one.
I will say, it sounds like this is just completely past this point. I do kind of love the idea of Michael B. Jordan as Thomas Crown.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like that's a guy who would bring such a different, he would still obviously be sexy and suave, but he has such a different energy than Pierce Brosnan. So it'd be like and Steve McQueen, right? So you'd have like 3 very different Thomas Crowns. So I do actually kind of love that idea. With Amazon having it now, like you said, who knows? Like it's just something they own and they say they're going to do something with. But I mean, they just say that. But I will say, and I don't always say this, but I do think this is a movie that might actually lend itself well to a series adaptation. Mm-hmm. Like I could see, especially if you're doing like the cat and mouse game between Crown and Banning, like a 6 to 8 episode series where you get to like play that out a little bit more and really, really up the cat and mouse game. I think that could actually be cool. I would like to watch this as a show almost more than another movie.
Potentially, but also that dumb Mr. and Mrs. Smith show is coming out too with Donald Glover, and they've completely changed the whole reason why Mr. and Mrs. Smith was like a good movie. So I don't know if I trust the content machine to extend this out to many episodes. Maybe back in the heyday, maybe 6 or 7 years ago of TV, but now I feel like they would change everything that's special about it. And also a little too similar to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, I got the solution to that. They can hire me. I'm sure you can find a different host for this while I go to work on that. And
well, if they're listening right now, you heard that soap on a rope joke, so
No, soap and rope was you. I said drop the soap. Come on.
No, I know, because I want to get hired. Actually, that was the good joke. This was a blast to watch, honestly, and this has been really fun to talk about. It kind of matches the energy of the movie, if I'm being honest. I think I had a really fun time watching the movie, and I'm having a fun time talking about it.
There is just something about, like I said, there's something about this era, these kind of movies that I just find they're like comfort watches now, right?
Totally,
because we don't get them. These are the kind of movies that we took. I don't know. We took movies like this for granted so much in the 90s and early 2000s. Mm-hmm. Tons of these came out a year, and you're just like, I don't care about that. I'm only waiting to see the blockbusters. And now when everything's a blockbuster, you're like, where's that little like $30 million just simple little thriller? Like, so I think of all like the Grisham movies that were coming out around this time, and like, just these. I mentioned Out of Sight. Just those smaller films. Like, yeah, they're great to go back and watch now because they feel so of a different time that is sorely missed right now.
Big time. And again, a time of movie stars, a time of sexiness, a time of just adult movies being made by adults. You know, not adult movies in the sense of like, you know, porn or anything, but just a more mature sense of filmmaking, you know?
A time, yeah, like you said, like I said, I'm like Thomas Crown is kind of a cipher, but it comes from a time where like, hey, do you want to watch 2 hours of just Pierce Brosnan being rich and awesome and like doing things that no one else can do? And it's
Hell
like,
yeah.
and then he goes, is there a story? No, not really, barely. But I mean, you'll see him like whisk a woman off to like an island he owns, and they're going to be like both really sexy. And you're like, yeah, you know what? That sounds like a good 2 hours.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like some of the modern actors, but like when you're like, hey, do you want to watch 2 hours of just Chris Evans being a fart? No, I don't. I need like a good story, you know? Pierce Brosnan just comes from a different era where it's like, yeah, that's a movie star who, and I'm sure part of that is just the Bond of it all. But, yeah, I don't know. I miss these kind of movies for sure.
I agree completely. And Pierce Brosnan is kind of, you know, obviously I think Rene Russo is amazing in this. Of course I do. But I do find Pierce to be such brilliant casting in this movie. You know, like, yes, I keep saying Bond adjacent, but like you said, 2 hours watching this handsome dude just do cool shit, you know? It's like, yeah I want to watch that. And like, even he's got this different Bond charm, you know, especially their dance scene. We didn't even talk about their dance scene when they're in this club, and Russo's wearing this like really sheer dress, and she's like, it's, you know, it's she's so sexy in it, and they're both dancing.
Was it sheer? I didn't even notice.
The dress that you wore kind of was so tiny and flimsy it could fit into a matchbox.
Okay,
And it was,
absolutely.
And you could see through forever. It was delicious. It was
No, I
great.
didn't know that. Kate Harrington, the costumer,
we-
came in. Literally, she had the dress in her hand like that. And she opened it up and put it on. I said, no, no, I can't do that. She said, look, just put it on. So I put it on, and I was in a mirror, but it wasn't backlit. And I thought, well, at least you can't see through it.
You stood before me, the backlight came on, and it was...
Backlight was just, and I'm dancing away. I had no idea there was a backlight on me. None. No idea.
And then, you know, and it doesn't even look like Pierce Brosnan's acting at that point. You know, it looks like they both are having just an incredible time making this movie. And that's something you don't really get anymore with everybody filmed on green screen and not actually going to the private island that the movie is showing. You know, it's all just bullshit camera tricks now and budget cutting. And I think this one, it was like, you know, yeah, let's take these actors to a exotic island where they just can hang out and be naked for $50 million. It's like, oh yeah, sure, why not? Yeah. A great date.
So anyways,
movie
coming
too.
in
A great date movie.
2025 is Amazon's Thomas Crown Affair starring Chris Pratt, the first part of a trilogy probably. And
yeah.
You just had a heart attack when I said that, didn't you? 'Cause you know
I did.
it's true.
My brain broke. I really did break. I didn't know what to do with that one. Hey, and you know what? I used to be a Pratt defender. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And well,
there was that glorious like brief post First Guardians, you know, world where we're like, well, this guy, and then you know, didn't last long. But
no. So Trev, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you.
This was awesome. I'm so glad we picked things that were like so interconnected without even knowing. We are on the same page. This was great. This was a lot of fun. Also, listeners, you know, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you guys as well. Hope you stay on with us to, you know, 2024. 2023 was a little rough at times, but I think we got to some shameful films that I think we had to get to. You know what I mean? And yeah, 2024 looks great.
Yeah. How are we starting 2024? Should we talk about it?
Of course. Let me just bring it up because I forgot. Yes. Okay. Yes. Our themes, listeners, theme months, always. We actually have themes planned all the way through the summer next year. We're crazy. But 2024 kicks off with, okay, this is going to sound kind of sexy and BDSM-like, but it's not, okay? It's not exactly on theme, but this is our New Year's punishment party. And
put those whips and chains away. Hold on.
Yes. And grab a couple of assault rifles and I guess a skull chest logo, because we're looking at all three Punisher films. All three attempts to start this franchise. Trev really wanted to start the year out right, so January 2nd, we're looking at The Punisher from 1989, starring F2F alum Dolph Lundgren. January 16th, we're looking at The Punisher 2004, starring Thomas Jane. And then January 30th, we're looking at Punisher Warzone from 2008, starring the late, great Ray Stevenson. So, yeah, 3 Punisher movies. Looking forward to it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It'll be interesting. Like, we haven't done anything like this yet, right? We're essentially going to be looking at 3 versions of the same movie, kind of. You know, like, what does it mean when one character, they just keep trying and, like, but you're basically telling, you know, a very similar story each time. So this is all going down to actor and director and approach and tone, and it's going to be very, very exciting. So.
Totally.
And Chris, I also know that you love when I talk about like my history with characters, like the comic characters. So maybe I'll just do it on all 3 episodes. I'll just repeat the same long-winded story, and you can hear it 3 times.
That just sounds like our friendship. But yeah, sure. you can keep it going for the listeners.
Yeah, sure.
To hear all that and more, follow us at F2FPod. That's at F2, the number 2FPod. That's on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. Star rating would be great. And join the tribe and hit that subscribe. Because we are going into 2024 with our New Year's punishment party.
But no, 124 was a big hit back then. And yeah, this is definitely, you know, unlike The Nice Guys. Wait, I'm gonna pause for a second because I don't know if you can hear that in the background.
I can hear it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. That's the litter box. So just give it a moment.
That's fine.
And I'll just start over.
And be careful with your breathing.
Yep. I'll just start over what I was saying.
Actually, don't breathe. Ever.
Okay. I can probably pull that off.
I hear
Cruise can do it.
I hear a...
You just have to assemble everything I say from previous episodes.
It's like what they did with South Park with Chef.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, I should have told my cat not to shit half an hour before we recorded this.